You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. White conservatives are freaking out. In fact, last night it was so funny on Fox News. They had a special, Laura Ingraham, and she had DeSantis, she had the governor of Texas. And so here's the new thing. All these white Republicans, their new thing is trying to say systemic racism doesn't exist. Listen to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the person who they're proclaiming to be the front runner for the Republicans in 2024, going on and on and on with white nationalist Laura Ingraham, whining about systemic racism.
This proposition that we are a systemically racist country. Your reaction?
Well, it's a bunch of horse manure. I mean, give me a break. This country has had more opportunity for more people than any country in the history of the world. And it doesn't matter where you trace your ancestry from. We've had people that have been able to succeed and all. And here's the problem with things like critical race theory that they're peddling. They're basically saying all our institutions are bankrupt and they're illegitimate. Okay, so how do you have a society if everything in your society is illegitimate? So it's a very harmful ideology, and I would say really a race-based version of a Marxist-type ideology. So we've banned it in our schools here in Florida. We're not going to put any taxpayer dollars to critical race theory, and we want to treat people as individuals, not as members of groups.
I find that to be laughable, Teresa, because they damn sure don't mind treating black folks as groups when they're trying to have voter suppression.
Yeah, that entire, I watched it as well. And so that entire roundtable discussion, with the conservative leadership of the party is really disturbing, because not knowing, the impact of that conversation and those in the audience, I actually had a friend who was doing production on that side, and I'm like, how many African Americans were there? There were probably like 3 people and they're on staff. So when we talk about systemic racism and how, and Governor DeSantis said he eliminated that education inside the school system, he's really doing a disservice, not only to the individuals that's in his state, but also to the culture. Because you have to understand, and Roland, you talk about this all the time, when we really, start to dig into what systematic racism is and what it looks like and the various forms thereof. And so when we have, elected leaders saying this type of ideology and people are essentially, okay with this and okay with not knowing where our history and not knowing, how we came out of it, but then got a nerve to say that opportunities are just at the horizon when really, African Americans and immigrants actually built this country. It's a hard shocker. Again, for those who are being elected and teaching this type of doctrine, who knows what the generation is going to be, and it's just really harmful to the public.
Actually, no, but I think to Jason's point, let me channel Dr. Greg Carr, who would say right now, I'm glad to see the white nationalists speaking publicly what they've always said and believed privately. Because see, because it's now become real, now they got no choice. There's no such thing as dog whistle anymore. No, they're hollering, they're screaming, they're yelling. They're saying exactly what the whole deal is. Donald Trump was the embodiment of white supremacy. And Donald Trump said stuff not giving a damn, and the rest of the party was like, oh, well, hell, we don't have to listen to Lee Atwater and use other phrases. We could just go ahead and say it. We don't want y'all asses here. The travel ban, that's all that was about. We do not want people of color. What did Trump say? Why can't we get more people from Denmark? What was he saying? Hey, we need more white people. Game, recognize game. So, Jason, what our response has to be is to say, thank you. I appreciate you showing your sheets without the hoods.
No, I agree. And number one, people from Denmark don't want to come here because they've got universal health care and a lot of things that we need here in this country. But I think you're absolutely correct. I think it's good when people, it's the old metaphor that I think Malcolm gave where he talked about, a wolf and a sheep, a wolf and a fox. A wolf lets you know who they are and you can see them coming. A fox pretends to be with you while he's sizing you up the entire time. And so I'm actually glad that people like Donald Trump have exposed a lot of these members of Congress, a lot of people who are celebrities, a lot of others. We know who they are and what they represent now. And I think that's actually a good thing. Like, I'm not shocked anymore when these people expose themselves and show exactly who they are, what they stand for, and the policy that they stand for. And I think one of the scary things, though, and I see what Miss Tiffany is saying, is the fact that it's been so mainstreamed to be hostile to people of color, whether it's Muslims or whether it's immigrants from Central America. It's become so mainstream to speak so openly about being hostile to those groups that it's going to be uncomfortable. But I think, again, like the brother was saying earlier, we just have to continue to fight against that and to, make inroads that way.
Bottom line is, folks, we got to know exactly what we're dealing against, and we got to prepare folks for it. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have, you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it. Please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Let's go to Virginia, where critical race theory workshops mandated for teachers are now required learning for youth sports coaches. Baseball coaches in the Alexandria Little League received an email urging them to cancel practice to attend the Sports Can Battle Racism class. The league is requiring its coaches to take the anti-racist workshops before the season ends. The virtual learning sessions cost up to $10,000 for the league and minors and mirrors similar critical race theory training teachers in many Virginia school districts and now required to take to foster actively anti-racist learning environments. Nothing wrong with going to class. I'm quite sure Republicans in Virginia, Ben, are not going to be happy, and they'll be bitching and moaning about this real soon.
Yeah, we can expect this before the end of the night. They're absolutely going to lose their minds over the fact that this is being offered as a class, and then, God forbid, it's going to cost the county $10,000. The number one thing that white supremacists fear is the ability of the people who have been oppressed in this country because of racism to be able to tell their own history. And so they are going to come. I expect a full court press. In fact, I think Fox News is probably going to cover it tonight, if not tomorrow, because the number one thing that they're afraid of in this country isn't COVID-19, it's critical race theory.
Kelly, I do laugh at how Republicans just go so crazy with critical race theory. And hell, they can't even define it.
That was what I was about to say. I was like, do they even know what critical race theory is? I don't think to date I've seen an interview in which anybody on the Republican side either answers the question outright or gives a correct answer at all. But I will say, shout out to Kimberly Crenshaw for just changing our mindset when it comes to race and intersectionality as a whole. She is the one who coined the term and created the notion of intersectionality. And she is also the mastermind behind critical race theory, what it means and what it does. It's not diversity and inclusion training. It's not just some course that you take. It is a theory. It is a set of mindsets and thoughts that have been, documented that really just give you a basis for how and why things are. If you look at Christianity, there's a theory there's Christian theory, theology, there's a theory for everything. And critical race theory is basically saying, racism didn't pop up out of thin air, and neither did this system that we exist in that is inherently racist. It comes from something, and here are the tools needed to show you how we got here. It seems complicated, and it seems too advanced for children if that's what people are thinking. But just like how we started off with math at 1 + 1 and 2 + 2, critical race theory does the same thing. It's not like we're just gonna, put kids in a room and be like, hey, this is why people are racist. No, there are steps along the way that children can understand and comprehend. And frankly, they're a lot smarter than even we think. So I think it's an excellent idea, but I am, admittedly a little giddy as to see how Republicans and conservatives who don't know what CRT is how they're going to react to this news.
Well, Congo, my deal is get the hell over it.
Most definitely. Look, I'm just annoyed that they didn't call me to do these trainings, because I do them all day across the country, and I live right down the street. But more to the point, I literally spend my days working in K-12 institutions in public, private, and charter schools. And one of the things that is factual is that kids can learn to discriminate as young as 3 years old. Some say even earlier. They are learning this. And I can tell you about situations I'm dealing with right now in some of the schools I'm working with, where we have these elementary school students who are engaged in racist behavior, who are talking about making jokes about George Floyd or hands up, get up against the wall. I'm literally seeing this happening with kids ages 5, 6, 7, and older. It is actually happening. I just got off a call doing a training with about 200 principals from across the country. So this is real. And if we don't do the work to reach our kids now and the people who are around these children, such as the adults who are part of this program, we can guarantee that some of those adults who may have some issues relating to their own ideas of race are going to be passing them down. I remember a story where during their election, the last election, you had a teacher who was telling elementary school students that if they didn't vote for Trump, they weren't good Christians. So we see every single day that adults are passing their beliefs and their racist ideas down to these kids. And it's high time that we continue to have these intervention programs to reach them at a younger level so we can all work together to create communities where people feel like they are celebrated and not tolerated.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Hello, I'm Nina Turner. My grandmother used to say, all you need in life are 3 bones. The wishbone to keep you dreaming, the jawbone to help you speak truth to power, and the backbone to keep you standing through it all. I'm running for Congress because you deserve a leader who will stand up fearlessly on your behalf. Together, we will deliver Medicare for all, good jobs that pay a living wage, and bold justice reform. I'm Nina Turner, and I approve this message.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
No charcoal grills are allowed. I'm white. I got you, huh? Illegally selling water without a permit
on my property.
Whoa! Hey!
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
The leaders of white fear in America is Fox News and conservative talk radio. Folks, their newest boogeyman is critical race theory. You want to hear some idiotic stuff? Listen to these fools on Fox and Friends, Steve Doocy, Ainsley Earnhardt, and the village idiot Brian Kilby.
Big difference between now and the 1960s. They're not acknowledging any improvement in our culture, the gains made, and how we're more equal, even despite our faults, than any other country. The other thing is, they're not only trying to raise up minorities and make sure the playing field is even, they're trying to take down the white culture. And they're wondering why, and this generation of Americans wonders, why aren't we all Americans? Why are we being marginalized on a daily basis on our gender, our sexuality, and the color of our skin? And it's not even subtle. It is actually out there. Sure. It is written in black and white. This is the big difference between other civil rights movements in our past. One, the first big one was a war. The second big one we saw in the streets, especially in the South. And this one we're seeing in the classrooms, and we've seen the enemy, and it's white people. And they wonder why people have a problem with it.
It's pretty simple what most families in America, I think, are teaching their kids, and that's the golden rule, to love others as yourself. Don't see people for skin color. We look to the Bible in my house. We love everybody. Everyone was created by God. And we live in this great country where you can be anything that you want to be, and you can be an individual. This lady's saying they're not teaching them to be individuals. They're trying to instead lump them in as a group based on race. Sure. I want my daughter to know she can be autonomous. She can stand on her own 2 feet. She can be an individual and be exactly who she wants to be, and using the desires that God has given her to for a bright future.
Well, you know, it is curious because it was just a couple of years ago where the United States of America elected an African-American as president of the United States. You know, the biggest entertainers, the biggest sports stars are African-American.
Oh, he mocked critical race theory.
Well, he did over on CNN, absolutely. And we played that a little while ago.
Oh, you gotta love the whiny white folks over at Fox News. Tim Wise, he joins us right now. Tim does all kind of anti-racism work. Tim, you've written a book. One of your books was Dear White People, and an open letter to white America. And clearly Fox and Friends host didn't read it.
Well, no, they didn't. I mean, look, first, let's be very clear. If you were to take Brian Kilmeade, hold him by his ankles over a bridge, and give him 2 or 3 minutes to actually tell you what critical race theory was, or else you were going to drop him, let's just say there'd be one less friend on Fox, right? Because he couldn't define it. And I'm not advocating the killing of Brian Kilmeade. Let's be very clear. I'm just saying none of these people who are critiquing what they call critical race theory could define it. They haven't read Derek Bell. They haven't read Kimberly Crenshaw. They haven't read Richard Delgado. They don't know anything about it. What they are using is that as a boogeyman term to refer to any discussion in school about the history of systemic racism in America and the contemporary reality of ongoing systemic racism. They simply do not want that analysis provided. They don't have a rebuttal to it other than to just say, well, there's no racism because, Obama won. Listen, Benazir Bhutto was elected not once but twice in Pakistan, a woman, but I bet they wouldn't say sexism has been eradicated in Pakistan. Right. The fact, and if it were up to white folks, including the ones who watch Fox and Friends, Obama wouldn't have won. White Americans, my people, I've been white a long time. I know my people well. Most white folks were happier with the thought of Sarah Palin maybe becoming president than Barack Obama. So how are you gonna hold up progress when you weren't part of it? How are you going to brag about the progress we've made and then put a hat on that says make America great again, which means you don't think we needed to make all that progress because stuff was cool 50 years ago and 70 years ago? I mean, the contradictions are massive, but what they all tell us is that there is a group of white folks, probably the majority of white folks clearly, who are afraid of a counter narrative. We prefer the George Washington and the cherry tree history, even though that story was a lie. George Washington didn't cut down a cherry tree and run and tell his daddy. George Washington barely knew his daddy. His daddy died when George was young. That's all a made up story. But we prefer that to the truth, which was what? George Washington was a particularly vicious enslaver of other human beings who, when they made the mistake of running away from Mount Vernon, had them tracked down on pain of death and took bounties out on them. That's who he was. Now, if you don't want me to say that because that's unpatriotic, your problem is not with political correctness, it's with historical accuracy. And white folks, for years, we've been able to ignore the truth. Now, the culture, the demographics are such that we're having to confront the things we've tried to deny. And for some folks, it's too painful to look at. Well, if it's painful to look at, imagine how much more painful it's been to live. And that's what black and brown folks have had to do.
Well, and what you're dealing with here, Tim, you're dealing with, and let's just be clear, the basis of Fox News that Roger Ailes put in place was to push the racial fears of white viewers, older white viewers. Fox News has always, I love it when they love talking about the new Black Panthers. And the media, they talked about the new Black Panthers more than anybody else, and then criticize the media for covering the new Black Panthers. It was Bill O'Reilly who attacked Ludacris when he had his Pepsi deal. It's always been that. And so what you're dealing with now, what critical race theory is, and here's a photo here. Amna Nawaz of PBS covered this. This is a Loudoun County school board meeting, and all these white folks turned out. 121 people signed up. And what was hilarious is that the superintendent said, we don't teach critical race theory in any of our schools. But these dumbasses who watch Laura Ingraham, who watch Sean Hannity, who watch Tucker Carlson, and now it's like critical race theory is now the banner, put everything that's racial in under that, critical race theory, and they have no idea what they cannot stand. And Brian Kilmeade said it. They do not like the fact that black people, Latino people, and Asian people, we now get to have an opinion about what it means to be an American.
Right, and have the ability to be heard and to have that opinion represented. For years, that's the thing. If you've had hegemonic dominance of the culture, pluralism feels like oppression. Right. And all it is sharing space. All it is saying, listen, we're going to have a bunch of perspectives offered that have been silenced before. That doesn't oppress you. That doesn't marginalize you. If you'd open your mind and your heart a little, it might enrich you. But instead, these folks, just to give you an idea of how absurd, and I know you know this, in Idaho, there's a lawmaker who got up and gave a talk a couple of weeks ago attacking critical race theory, complaining about the teaching of, get this, not Derek Bell, not Kimberly Crenshaw, not Richard Delgado, To Kill a Mockingbird. Harper Lee. That is like a staple of the American literary canon. And by the way, it's a white savior narrative, and they still didn't like it. Like Atticus Finch is the white dude who comes in to save the black guy, and I won't give away the ending as to whether it works or not in case folk haven't read the book. But I mean, if you can't even accept To Kill a Mockingbird, which is about racism in 1934 Alabama, I think is the year, then and they couldn't, this person got up and said, they're teaching our children that black people have been oppressed. Well, if you can't even accept the idea that black people were oppressed 90 years ago in Alabama, how the hell did you get to 8th grade to the point where they asked you to even read that book? But that's where we're at, because we're so used to being able to silence black people, to silence brown folks, to not have to consider their view, or maybe just sprinkle their view a little bit, season up the dominant narrative with some views from the outside. But the fact that other folks are saying, no, we're going to actually teach our view right there in the middle. We're going to have the 1619 Project reimagine the actual founding and the origins of the country. That's not displacing the dominant narrative. It's saying you got to consider this perspective also. But if you've never had to do that, that feels like the end of the world. It is the definition of fragility. It is the definition of snowflake behavior, which I should point out are also white. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And
the reason we're talking about this here, because look, our folks need to understand anything deemed racial, they're going to attack. I'm writing a book on this very thing that's going to come out next year called White Fear, The Browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. I mean, that's literally that's what's going on here. Donald Trump, his entire presidency was based upon that. He was pushing the racial buttons and all of this, and there's no coincidence. Tim, they need this to stoke white fear for next year's election. This is not by accident. They need white people to be upset and bothered. Here they come. They're marching. The migrants are coming here to kill us and take our jobs. The black people, now they're teaching our kids. No, you can't teach our kids about systemic racism and Ainsley Earnhardt, because in our house, we love the Lord and it's all about God. But Ainsley, I bet your church is damn near all white.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, all the enslavers said they were Christians. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? You know, the Golden Rule has been around a really long time. I'm pretty sure that the folks that ran the plantations had heard of that one. You know, and yet oppression still was the norm. So folks, we've always said, treat the Declaration of Independence. I mean, Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal, but he owned a couple hundred folks when he wrote that. So he clearly didn't mean it. So the question is, are we gonna just remember the fictional, hagiographic, rah-rah cheerleader version of American history? Or are we going to be honest that the country has been one foundationally built on a contradiction? The promise of democracy, but the reality of oppression. The reality of democracy only for a few and marginalization for the rest. And if you can't deal with that, right, then what you're showing is that this country, and especially its white population, is less emotionally mature than folks all around the world who have done a far better job at confronting their history. The Germans have done a better job. The South Africans post-apartheid have done a better job. The Rwandans after the genocide have confronted that history. And here we are a couple hundred years later, and we're still so consumed with the need to be the greatest country ever struck off from the forehead of God Almighty that we're not willing to look at the real damage that we've done, which means that we can't move forward. If you can't confront that pain and that past, you cannot move into the future a proud and confident nation and a pluralistic democracy. And that's what's at stake. This isn't just an academic discussion.
And Tim, I wonder how many of those white folks showing up at the Loudoun County School Board meeting, I wonder how many of them said, take those Confederate statues down. I wonder how many of them said, I'm not going to vote for a party that supports Confederate monuments, that supports these things. You see the idiots who got busted in Texas, who were trying to who didn't even know what the hell was in the bill, got thoroughly embarrassed on the floor, and then they of course lost. You know, what we're dealing with here is, and I keep telling people, I keep telling everybody, this was not about Trump. This was about 2043. This is what's going to be happening, not over the next 22 years. By the time we get 2043, we have a nation majority of people of color. This is going to be a 50, 100-year battle because white America has been defined through the prism of whiteness. They have determined the beauty standards, the historical standards. They have determined everything, and what is killing them is, damn, now more of them are on television hosting shows. More of them are in corporate America. More of them are teachers. More of them, we now have to put up with them having an opinion.
Right, right. Well, you saw this story the other day out of Ohio, Memorial Day thing, right? Where
oh, yeah. A 77-year-old retired lieutenant colonel who's white, who just simply said, here's the history of Memorial Day. Turn his mic. Turn his mic. We're not going to hear that. He is not talking about Hudson, Ohio veterans. Turn his mic off. And he was like, it's just the actual history.
Right, right. I mean, if you can't even let the old white dude tell you the truth, then you know you're in trouble, right? They literally were so desirous of not allowing the centering of black people in any way that's positive. They don't mind centering black folks to be critical of black folks. They don't have any problem centering blackness to point out what they consider pathologies in black communities, families, and culture. But if you talk about the contributions of black people to this thing that you consider, you know, basic to your reality, Memorial Day, oh no, we can't hear that. So what that says is you hit it on the head, that America is a de facto white nationalist colony and always has been. And the fact that folks now are saying we have to confront and look at that is uncomfortable for them. They deny the foundations of the country, and they say that to point them out is anti-white. But what we're pointing to are the things that the founders themselves said. You know, I often point out the very first thing that Congress did after the Constitution was ratified, before they raised taxes.
The first thing, number one, go ahead.
The first thing they did after the Constitution was ratified, first order of business, the Naturalization Act of 1790. What was that? It said all free white persons and only free white persons could be citizens of this country. So they were basically saying the most important thing we can do, we're not even going to congratulate ourselves on the Constitution. We're not going to get the Army situation figured out, raise money for no, we have to let you know this is a white country. They said it. That's not Derek Bell saying it. That's not Kim Crenshaw saying it. That's not Richard Delgado, and it's not you and I. That's the founders of the country, the first lawmakers that said, yes, this is white. And so if that's what your country's been for hundreds of years, and folks actually say, no, really, it was never a white nation. Y'all just thought it was, and you ran it like it was, then that becomes the source of division. And so these folks can say, you're the ones creating the division by bringing this up, but the division is in the Naturalization Act of 1790. The division was in the colonial creation of the concept of whiteness, which didn't exist in Europe before quote unquote white people came here. That's something that was created here. You cannot blame the pushback for the division, because the pushback was in response to the original division. That's what white supremacy is.
Tim, go to my computer, the American Legion Department of Ohio, just to show what happens when you act stupid. They've invited that retired lieutenant colonel to give the same speech next week at their Buckeye Boys State, an annual gathering that teaches young men about government. See what happens? Very few people were actually at that Hudson, Ohio Memorial Day event. These idiots are so stupid. They actually made it bigger by turning off his microphone. I got to ask you this, which is last question for you. We've had Jane Elliott on the show, and she's always great. What needs to be happening in white America? I mean, you know, are we seeing more Jane Elliott's, more Tim Wise's? What should be the and I got white folks who watch this show. They email me, and I appreciate it. I had a white woman who emailed me the other day. She said she's learned more about black folks and about the actual history of America watching our show than she's ever had in her life, and she thanked me for doing this show. You know, what should be happening in white America, in white churches? What should be happening in white households, white fraternities, the discussions that should be happening? What do you want to say to them?
Well, I mean, look, I guess the thing I would say is to white folks, do you feel a helplessness around this conversation, an inability to engage? You get anxiety when issues of race come up. The reason for that is lack of practice learning about, talking about, and thinking about these issues. If you don't like the discomfort created by the conversation, which I get, like if we had a conversation about calculus, I would be very uncomfortable because I never studied it and I don't understand it. Same is true here for a lot of white folks never having to think about the issue of white supremacy as a system and its role in our own lives leaves us like the person that didn't take calculus. The problem is the only way you get better at it is to watch shows like yours, read the books that need to be read, and engage in the conversations. Challenge your family, challenge your colleagues, talk to your children. And if you're a child, talk to your parents, because sometimes the children are ahead of the parents in that regard. And ask some real fundamental questions about how did this church get to be so white? How did this school get to be so white? Why is this neighborhood so white? These are conversations that I had with my children. We would talk about this stuff from a very early age. Why are the Disney representations the way that they are? Media messages. What are the messages that kids pick up from all the media that they ingest? There's lots of places to start, but you have to do that if you're going to get the practice necessary to have dexterity in racial conversations and to really be able to do what we call race talk. Right, which is a kind of language. Because if you understand race talk, you wouldn't get upset when folks say white supremacy as a system. You wouldn't do the Brian Kilmeade, they're trying to destroy white culture. Well, why do you identify with white supremacy? We were just talking about white supremacy. We didn't say Brian Kilmeade. We didn't say anything about you, Brian. Why are you getting defensive? Well, because you don't understand race talk. If you actually had been around black and brown folks talking about race, you would realize it's not personal, this is business. Right? This is not personal. It's not an attack on you. It's an attack on a system of thinking, a system of institutional reality. That's what we're trying to change. This is not about good people over here and bad people over here. Most folks are pretty good folks. But if you're a good person caught up in a bad system, you'll recreate the damage of that bad system.
And what you're saying is not just to conservatives, because there are progressives, there are liberals, there are Democrats who do the exact same thing, and they go, but no, I support the NAACP and the UNCF. No, but your whiteness also is peeking out from under the sheet too.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
Tim Wise, we appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Of course, you have all this conversation dealing with critical race theory. 1619 Project, folks, is not critical race theory. And one of the folks who has spoken out, we talked about this last Friday, was a Black woman from Florida talking to the State Board of Education about critical race theory not teaching the truth. Keisha King is political consultant and co-chair of Moms for Liberty, and she joins us right now. Keisha, glad to have you in Roland Martin Unfiltered. First and foremost, what exactly is critical race theory, and is it where was it being taught in Florida schools?
So critical race theory is the idea that America, the foundation of America is, racism is ingrained into the foundation and it cannot be removed. And so the outworkings of that today and in classrooms is that, this is a very simple way to say it, but white heterosexual men, able-bodied, are deemed the oppressors, and everyone else is deemed oppressed. And you can't get away from that. It is what it is because of the idea that racism is ingrained into the fabric of America, that you can't repent from it, you can't move forward from it, and it's there to stay.
Actually, what you just said is not true. So this is what the folks at Ed Week have laid out. Critical race theory is an academic concept that is more than 40 years old. The core idea is that racism is a social construct. Is that true or false? Is racism a social construct?
I do believe that, yes, racism is a social.
All right. And it says that it is not merely the product of individual bias or prejudice, but also something embedded in legal systems and policies. Do you believe that racism is embedded in legal systems and policies in the United States?
I do not.
Do you believe that racism is embedded in housing policies in the United States?
No, because people run these systems. And so we would have to say that racism is embedded into people if we are going to say it's embedded into these systems.
Well,
so abstract. They are actually run by human beings.
But if the individuals are actually running the system and then it's being implemented, then it's still in the system. So, for instance, when you talk about housing in your state of Florida, there have been stories where African Americans, there was one woman who was married to a white gentleman where an appraiser came out to their home and gave them a far less value on their home when they removed all of everything in their house that identified as black, then a second appraiser came out, there was a higher valuation on their home. Is that racism?
I'm not sure, but I mean, I certainly know that racism exists.
But hold on, you're not sure. You're not sure that if an appraiser comes out and gives a lower home appraisal, and after meeting the black woman, the black wife, but then when they brought a second appraiser out, the black wife was nowhere to be found. They removed all pictures of her in the home. They removed anything black art or whatever. Then all of a sudden there was a higher appraisal value. Same house, exact same house. But all of a sudden it's got a higher appraisal value. Is that not racism in housing?
For me, I would have to have more information. That doesn't necessarily mean that it could be racism.
Well, what do you think it is? What do you think it is?
I don't know, but I wasn't there. I would have, for me, I would have to have more information.
So let me ask you this question: Do you believe that systematic redlining of communities where black people live, is that racism?
Redlining?
Yes.
Yes, that was racism.
But isn't that systematic? Because that was a system that was actually imposed by banks. It was imposed by the federal government. It was actually a part of federal policy. Is that not racism?
That was the law at a point in time. However, today, in 2021, where we have many more diverse people that run these corporations, we have much more of a diverse. My bottom line is America has progressed. We are not the same country that we were.
Of course not. But we're
centuries ago. So that doesn't mean that when we see disparities, it automatically is an implication of racism.
So let me ask you this question.
It's not always that the case.
Okay, so if you're seeing disparities, in terms of in this country, if you're seeing disparities in terms of African Americans, whether in executive suites, if you're seeing that. If you're seeing the same thing in other areas, what would you attest to? If you all of a sudden you look at Silicon Valley, if you see in companies on the West Coast, and you see 1.5% or even fewer black folks working at those companies, what do you say is the problem?
I would say that we should encourage our community to get more involved with STEM, math, science. But we don't need to be teaching that we're permanently in a state of oppression.
But Keisha,
we need to be teaching math.
But Keisha, but do you even know that 60% or more of the jobs in Silicon Valley have nothing to do with STEM?
Regardless, I mean, they're not.
No.
Doesn't necessarily mean that they're all white either, because a lot of these people are from India. A lot of them are Asian, so it's not that they're just white people running these things. I mean, there are other
so that's not problematic
that have dominance in those industries as well. And I just believe that we should be afforded those same opportunities
to
progress into those industries.
But right there, you said we should be afforded those opportunities. There have been African Americans who have worked at companies like Google and Facebook who have said, who were there on the recruitment side, who have said that those companies refuse to hire and recruit from HBCUs, refuse to have programs. And so black folks who worked in those companies, who were advocates, who said that what you just described, we should have an opportunity, what they say is opportunity was not given. They wouldn't even, and in fact, what they would even do is they would even have a sliding scale, would go, oh, because they didn't come from Stanford or Harvard, yeah, that's not going to work. So when you say the opportunity, but isn't that also racist when you don't even want to recruit from HBCUs, when you look at an HBCU education as less than, when you're not providing those level of opportunities, when you're remarked, well, they don't fit into our culture. What do you ascribe that then?
I mean, these are individual circumstances. I'm not going to blanket the entire black community as being less than because.
I'm sorry, I didn't say less than, but that's them.
Telling me that they didn't, because I know plenty of success. I'm looking at you. You're a very successful black man.
Well, guess what?
Plenty of very successful.
But hold up.
I'm not saying that is without struggle. I'm not saying that is without competition.
No.
That is without any of those things.
But you left out racism. But you left out racism.
I don't believe that racism is our primary problem in America today.
No, but that's not what I said. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I'm saying is, but you did leave out racism. See, because what you don't know is that when I was an intern at the TV station in Bryan College Station, Texas, when a weekend sports anchor job came open at KBTX, the sports director, the assistant sports director, the 5 p.m. producer, the 6 p.m. producer, the 10 p.m. producer, they were like, yo, Roland's the best one for the job. The white male news director made it clear he was not going to hire a black male. His dear friend, investigative reporter Alice Brown, took me on a walk and said he's not going to hire you. Now, did that somehow stop me? No, but here's what I will say. Did that actually have an impact? First of all, it impacted me economically because I did not get that particular job while I was in college. But here's the whole point. Why should racism prevent me from being able to get a job? Yeah, the guy's name was Jeff Braun. I still call his name out. And it was undeniable. I'm talking about, like, it wasn't even close in terms of who was best. And so that was an example that I personally experienced in terms of racism in my career as a student at Texas A&M. And what I'm saying to you is that exists. I have been in media since I was 13 years old. Racism exists in media. I have seen editors choose not to hire folks based upon race. So to act like it doesn't exist, when you look at the numbers, it's undeniable in media when white men dominate the C-suite and very few of us are able to get through the ladder. It's real, but to you say those are individuals.
Mr. Martin, one of the very first things I said was that racism exists. So I never said that racism does not exist.
No, but you said not in system.
As long as we're on this side of heaven, there will always be racism. There will always be murder. There will always be horrible, awful things. And what I am saying is that we are the most successful black people, black Americans are the most successful black people in the entire world. And so what I am saying is that it is insulting for us to be in the most successful country in the world, the most progressive people in the world, for people to tell us that we are in a perpetual state of oppression is an insult. I am not telling my child that they are limited by their skin color. I will never tell my children or myself.
Is that what critical race theory does?
Is a burden to me.
Is that what critical race theory does? Because again, you spoke at the Florida State Board of
Critical race theory is the idea that racism is ingrained into the nation, in all the institutions, and there is in all the organizations, and there is no way to remove it. And how it's outworking in today and in the classrooms is that white people are deemed the oppressor, which means that they just have this superiority.
I'm sorry. Where is that? So where in Florida?
And we're just automatically oppressed.
Where in Florida is critical race theory being taught? Where?
In my daughter's school, which I heard her teacher teaching. They don't have a critical race theory book.
So hold on. One second. Hold on 1 second.
Open up your critical race
no, hold on 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Okay.
They're not saying
No, 1 second. 1 second. You said you heard your daughter's teacher teach critical race theory. Critical race theory is not being taught on the critical race theory is being taught on the college level. So what are you associating as critical race theory? Because, for instance, there are a lot of people like, Senator Tom Cotton and others. They think the 1619 Project is critical race theory. It's not. Do you believe the 1619 Project is critical race theory?
If you are teaching that racism is ingrained into the system of America, that is the basis of critical race theory.
No, it's not. No, you're wrong.
If you read Derek Bell, if you read Kimberly Crenshaw with the intersectionality, if you study what they write, that is what they are teaching.
Hold on.
Idea from critical theory, from legal theory. This is not new. This started in Germany.
It's a legal theory.
Yes, it is a theory. We teach evolution theory. Theories are taught in school.
No. But this particular legal theory is not being taught in the curriculum in Florida. Where?
Mr. Martin, I heard a recording from my daughter's classroom where her teacher was teaching the theories of critical race theory. I heard this for myself. With her first week in school, she was asked what pronoun she wants to be identified as. She never...
That's not critical race theory.
Hold on 1 second. That is what I never said that was critical race theory. But the idea that was being presented to her is what made my alarm go off. And so I started to tell her about some different things because I've been studying this for over a year now. I'm not new. This is not a new concept to me. And because I understood how it starts to come into conversations and things like that, I knew what to look out for. And she on her own recorded this conversation because I've been teaching my children of what to look out for. And so, yes, it is not an official curriculum, but it is being weaved into official curriculum, which is exactly what I heard her language arts teacher teach on that day. And in Duval County, in Jacksonville, we had a segregated assembly that was put on by a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, where she was going to segregate the black children from the white children.
Why?
I am sorry.
Hold on, wait.
I don't care why.
Hold on, wait. Why? No, what was it? No, I'm asking. No, I'm asking. Wait, no, 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Keisha, 1 second. You said a diversity consultant was doing this. I'm asking the question, why? What was she trying to teach? What's the why?
When someone is segregating people what about the biracial children? Where do they go?
I'm asking. No. You're not answering my question. You're not answering my question. You're not answering my question. Why? What was the exercise? What was the exercise?
They never said why she did it. They said this is what's being done.
No. Did you ask why?
There is no reason.
No. Did you ask why?
There is no reason to segregate people by race.
So hold on 1 second. Have they ever?
We are not even. I'm 20% European. You probably have whites in your family.
First of all, white folks in slavery slept with a whole bunch of slaves, so we already know how that goes. But I'm still trying to get back to, because again, you're not answering the question, because I still would like to know. Okay, when they did this assembly, what was the basis? What was it? Did you ask?
There was no explanation. Emails went unanswered.
No. Did you ask?
Explanation. When parents, black, white, and others, heard about the segregation of their children by color, that was a problem, regardless of the reason.
Did you ask? Now, can you answer my question? Did you ask?
A good reason to segregate kids by
Okay,
color.
Keisha, if there was an assembly and they separated boys and girls, would you be objecting?
No, it depends on.
Wait, hold up. So you're objecting, and you didn't ask why. You're objecting if there was an assembly separated by race, but you have no questions if it was gender. Why?
Because there are distinct differences between girls and boys.
Well, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. Are there distinct differences?
And a white boy. What is the distinction between a black girl and a white girl? What is the distinction between a biracial girl
I'm still
and another biracial girl?
I'm still trying to understand. I'm still trying to. Have you ever heard? Have you ever heard of the
distinct differences? Our brains are even made up differently. Unless you think you agree with some of these.
It's interesting.
People are intrinsically different, are lower, are somehow different than other people. I cannot understand how you could think that there would be any good reason to segregate people by race.
I find it interesting that you would not. I find it interesting.
Why would we segregate people by race?
I find it interesting that you would object. I find it interesting that you would say, oh, no, I wouldn't object to an assembly that was girls and boys, but you objected one based upon race, and you still haven't answered my question. Why? What was the purpose of them separating? What was it?
I don't know the reason. I don't have to know the reason.
No. Did you ask?
There is no reason.
Did you ask? So wait a minute. Okay, see, now I'm confused because you wouldn't ask why a separate assembly for boys and girls, but now you wouldn't. But you said I would have to ask if it was about race. That makes no sense.
I think it's very obvious, and boys and girls are different. And there are legitimate things that boys experience at certain ages and legitimate things that girls experience at certain ages. So maybe, yes, there would be a reason to, biological reasons why you would want to, segregate the children by gender. That makes sense. But to segregate people by race, what is the difference other than more or less melanin? There's no intellectual difference. There is no, what is the difference between black children, white children, Asian children, Hispanic children, and all different types of people? What's the difference that skin color has to do with your ability to learn, with your ability to reason, with your ability to do anything in society? Would be a good reason to separate people by the color of their skin?
Well,
this is what we did back in the 1800s. I don't think we want to go back there. I certainly don't. And I would try to tell my kids that any person is better than them based on skin color. And I can't believe that you would even think that that is something acceptable.
Well, first of all, first of all, I use my brain. And what I do is my first response is oh my God, this is no. I would then go, the first I would say is, why? What's the basis behind it? Now, are you speaking about what was taking place at Douglas Anderson? Is that the school?
Correct, at Douglas Anderson.
So this took place at their School of Arts. And so what the school stated is that there were cultural issues that have arisen at the particular school. And the email states that one meeting will be for students of color, and the other will be for white students. It also reads about working together, we can all create the best DA. And so what they laid out in here was that this is, quote, over the last year, there's been tons of attention that has been drawn to the racial divide and tension at Douglas Anderson, and there were efforts made to try and pull things together, mend wounds, and improve relationships. But when I saw the memo, I couldn't believe it was like we took a step back. This is from LaToya Gunn. Now, her daughter has said that she's heard other students, white students, use the N-word. And so if they were trying to sit here and so are there racial tensions at the school? Have you talked to other black parents and white parents?
Yeah, I talked to many black parents. My daughter went to the junior high that would be before she goes to.
Are there racial tensions there?
I've never heard of any racial tensions before this particular incident. And even still, even if there were
No,
racial
hold on.
incidents,
I'm asking.
why would you segregate the children by race?
Well, actually, it doesn't, Keisha. So, Keisha, because let me
Mr. Roland,
allow me as somebody who has dealt with some of these similar issues. It's very similar when in the workplace, where in an environment where a certain group, women, Latinos, African Americans, others, who might feel as if there are fundamental problems going on. You may have a group of black employees that meet with leadership, who meet with the boss. That actually happens. We did that when I was at CNN, where these things happen. In fact, Fox News, in June of last year, a group of black employees actually came together and held a meeting with the executive leadership of Fox News to complain about racism and other issues at Fox News. There was a discrimination suit that was actually filed by black employees at Fox News. So what you're actually describing, those meetings actually do happen, because what it does is it allows for leadership to actually hear from an aggrieved group to understand what is going on. So what you're saying is you didn't hear of any racism, but according to stories that are done, other black parents have talked about racial tension at this particular school. So if that's the case, do you believe that if there's racial tension in a place, that a group of black students should be able to gather to express their feelings directly to the leadership of the school? Should that happen?
If the individual is affected, black, white, other, whatever
no,
you
are,
are,
I asked
if you
you
want
no,
to take your,
I asked you a specific question.
If you want to take, if you want to take that grievance to the leadership of an organization, a school, wherever it may be, by all means, go ahead. But to take the entire organization and say, even if you had nothing to do with it, even if you're not experiencing the same thing, and just say, we're going to separate the black folks over here and put the white folks over there, how is that?
Actually, first of all,
racial tension.
Well, first of all, according to the school memo, it was white students and people of color. So people of color includes more than black people. But I'm going to go back to ask you the other question. If there was an issue where girls at this school had a fundamental issue, would you have a problem if the girls met separately from the boys?
I would say it again. If those girls, the specific girls who had a problem, I don't think you should round up every girl just because some girls had a problem.
But that's totally different what you said earlier.
Some girls are not experiencing, that's exactly what I said. You should take the individuals that it was affecting and let them go to leadership. Take the individual girls, boys, whoever. Let them go to leadership. Why are we rounding up everybody as if we all think the same and we don't have any type of autonomy or self?
Earlier you said you have no problem with a separate girls' assembly, separate boys' assembly. You said out your own mouth, oh, there are differences.
Mr. Martin, these are two totally different questions that
you literally said. You objected.
Did I think that girls and boys should be segregated at any point in time? And I said, yeah, okay, I can see where girls and boys could be separated. If you're talking, you may want to talk about getting your cycle. Boys don't experience that. Or, boys going through different things that they go through biologically. I can understand a grouping of
So you can.
That happens to every girl.
So you can understand that, but you can't understand a group of white students, a group of people of color, and talking about the issues they may be facing. And here's the deal: if you're black or Latino and you go to the meetings of people of color, you can stand up and actually say, "Hey, I've had no issues, no problems here at the school. It's been great and wonderful." What's the problem?
I'm just saying that why do you have to drag everybody in? If it's a specific issue to those people who experience that issue, why can't we let them sort it out? Why are we trying to make this like that every person who is identifies within that group or maybe associated within that group, that they automatically have the same issue?
Because probably if you've had such a widespread issue, you cast a wide net. And wait, but then again, you still had no problem with the group meeting. I'm still going to go back to this here because this is still very interesting. You talk about critical race theory, and what we're seeing across this country, we're seeing folks just lump everything in together. Any conversation, so anything dealing with race, and that to me is what the folly is. The reality is, in Florida schools, just like in Texas, in Oklahoma, and Arkansas, critical race theory was not being taught. It was not in the curriculum. It was not there. And so, since I'm gonna use your example, Let me just use your example of, well, if this group has a problem, then take it up with them. So if you had a problem with one teacher saying something to your child, why pass a statewide ban on critical race theory when it didn't even exist? Why? If it's only your child or a couple of others, I'm using your setup. Why do a mass ban if there's only a handful of examples? Why?
This is not being taught to just a few individuals.
It's not being taught at all.
How do you know that, Mr. Martin?
Critical race theory is not in the curriculum in Florida.
Like I said, there is no book that they have. It's not an official.
Okay, so how many teachers are teaching it in Florida?
Two.
Okay,
so for instance,
how many teachers in Florida are teaching critical race theory off the books? How many?
I'm not sure.
Okay, but stop. You're not sure. So you went before the State Board of Education and supported a statewide ban on something that you could not quantify.
Yes, because anytime you try to segregate people by their race and say
that's one school.
Group of people
No, Keisha. No, Keisha. That's one school.
Racism,
no, Keisha.
Roland.
Keisha. So Keisha, wait a minute. Hold up. Let's stay right there.
Clearly,
so
you're talking about it.
So wait a minute. You're now contradicting yourself.
No, I am
you
not.
are. You just said if a group of people have a problem at a school, the administrator should only take it up with those people and not do a full assembly, right? That's what you said, right?
What I said was, if there is a specific issue, you were specifically talking about the Douglas Anderson case where there was a specific issue. I was speaking to that. As far as critical race theory, which is a separate issue, what I'm
but
saying
it's not being taught.
This is being widely, yes, it
and
is.
I asked you how widely? How widely? How widely?
I don't know.
Hold up, wait. Hold up.
In my daughter's school.
Hold up, 1%. Hold up. You gave me one teacher. So is it 5% of all teachers in Florida doing this? Do you know? Is it 10%?
So if I was to say, okay, well, there's only 2% of racist people in the United States Congress, are you going to be like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about that because it's only 2%?
No. I'm using your example.
I don't want racist teachings anywhere in American classrooms.
Here's the problem. You contradicted yourself. You supported a statewide ban on something that's not even being taught because your child recorded one teacher. You can't even answer. You literally cannot even answer how widespread is it. You said, I don't know. So your deal is, I don't, you sound like...
You're okay with some racism teachings, as long as it's not widespread.
No, here's the deal, Keisha. Okay. I'm going to use your example. Since you had a problem with one teacher, Keisha should have gone, oh, she hung up, y'all. See what happens? This is what happens, y'all. Did she hang up or did our system go out? She hung up. See, this is what happened, y'all, when you're busted. Okay, I got another guest coming up, but pull up my panel and tell my next guest to hold on, because I'm going to go to them. This is what happens when you're busted. This is what happens when you contradict your own argument. if Keisha had a problem with a teacher saying something in the classroom, she should have gone to the principal and then the school board. She supported the passage of a bill across the entire state because of 2 incidents. And then, Teresa, she couldn't answer, how widespread is this? How widespread is it? I don't know. She sounds like Republicans saying, yeah, we're going to pass new voting laws. We ain't got proof, but what the hell? We're just going to pass it.
Yeah, I mean, Keisha, is obviously, I looked at her social media account while you guys were discussing, because I was just so curious about, where some of her ideas of how she came across this topic. And part of it is, even in her, mini bio, and it goes to a point here, but the mini bio, it says like rising star in the GOP, it's just mom, so, and then if you go on the timeline, it says, she was just on a program with Fox News. And so, again, I understand her profile. So I understand she is on message. But what I don't understand is the ignorance that we choose to have. I think education is a strong component here. I think most of it she was grasping, but then the contradiction of what she was saying also put her backwards in her original position. Because you can't agree with some portions of, I agree, I disagree with them separating blacks and whites, but I agree with them separating girls and boys. Like that, it just doesn't make sense, because what happened to the kids where, that they want to choose who they want to be? So, I mean, there's so many issues here, and I think that's really just surrounding her statement. But again, it also shows that the GOP is not
bring her on. Okay, all right. So apparently Keisha wants to get back on. So Keisha, come on back. But here's the deal, Ben. I stand by my position. You can't support a statewide ban, every school district, every classroom, because of one teacher and your daughter.
Yeah, I would like to ask Sister Keisha if we found more provable instances of racism than she found of provable instances of critical race theory being taught. Would she support the existence of critical race theory? I mean, since it's like almost like an all or none proposition with her. Because then my second question would be, when's the last time she actually can say that she personally experienced racism in this country? Because I think she's vacillating back and forth between racism as an individualist construct, something that an individual is responsible for. And that's usually what conservatives do to make sure that this structural system is never held accountable by saying, oh, that's an individual racist problem. So I do want to kind of know if we found more examples of racism than she found of examples of critical race theory, would she go before the board and support critical race theory?
Hey, y'all, what's the status of Keisha? All right. So let me do this here, y'all. Okay, we gonna come back later in the show with part 2 with Keisha. Okay, so is my next? Okay, she's picking up now. Okay, because I still want to know again how. Okay, Keisha, you there?
I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm still. So Ben Dixon, you had a question for Keisha. So, Ben, go ahead and ask her the question, and let's see if she answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's a simple question. If we were to show you provable, objective examples of racism, more examples of racism than you found examples of critical race theory being taught, would you go before the Board of Education with the same energy and the same fervor and demand that we do something about racism, since you put that metric out there in terms of how many times you saw critical race theory being taught?
I would stand up against racism anytime I saw it. Absolutely. I'm not for racism, and I know that it exists. That's not what I'm saying. So yes, I would stand up against racism. That's what I'm doing now.
So you see more of a problem in the racism of your perceived racism of the 1619 Project, critical race theory, than any.
No, not 1619 Project, not 1619 Project.
But the conflation of the two.
Right. No, but so again,
because it's not the same.
I still just want to know, what is the percentage of, again, these examples you're using, how many are we talking about? 5, 20, 100, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. This thing that you're describing that your daughter experienced, how rampant is it in Florida?
If it is any at all, I have a problem.
So
Anytime anybody is trying to tell children that they are in a perpetual state of oppression by a racial group, I don't care what the color is, that is racism.
So Keisha, should the state, Keisha, if there are 5 examples, Keisha, if there are 5 examples in the whole state, instead of the principal or the school board handling that, your answer is ban it across the state. Even though I don't know.
That would just like saying, well, there was only one hanging, so why do we need to ban hanging people, hanging black?
Okay, but see now, that makes no sense. That literally makes no sense. Okay. Because again though, I'm using your language. I'm using your language. You said that if there were a group of students or a group of people on a job who had an issue, that group of people should go to the superiors at that school to deal with it. You said, and not have a block-wide assembly. And what I'm saying to you is, if there are a group of parents who are objecting to a group of teachers, why not deal with those teachers and that principal, as opposed to say to the State Board of Education, oh, we're just gonna ban this thing across the state that actually doesn't even exist in the state. You do not see how you literally are contradicting yourself?
Okay, well, if you don't believe that it exists, and if you really don't think that it is a problem, at this point, I'm not sure.
No. See, here's the deal. Here's the deal. I'm gonna use a legal standard. In order for Roland to show, if I want to do a class action lawsuit, I have to show that there are multiple people who have been harmed. I have to actually show, I gotta have evidence. I gotta have data to say, oh, this isn't one case of Roland being harmed. No, here are multiple examples of African Americans who have been denied. What I'm saying to you is, you can't even provide that to me. You can't even tell me that 5,000 teachers or 7,000 teachers or 100 teachers. All you have is one teacher recorded with your daughter, and you stood up at a State Board of Education meeting and supported a statewide ban based upon one instance of your daughter. And I'm using your example. Why didn't you, versus have the state ban it, why didn't you go to the principal and the school district and say, I have a problem, let's deal with it here, as opposed to say, oh, let's do it? Because guess what? There are a bunch of schools and teachers who don't do what you do. So now you passed a law that impacts them, and they have nothing going wrong. Do you not see the contradiction?
If they're not teaching it, then they don't have to worry about it.
You already said they're not teaching critical race theory in the district. You said they're teaching it unofficially.
That's right. And there's many.
And how many teachers are unofficial? Keisha, answer my question. How many teachers?
If teachers are teaching
Keisha, answer my question, Keisha. How many teachers?
I don't know that answer.
Keisha.
I don't know, because
you're admitting. So Keisha, you are admitting you do not know how many teachers in Florida are teaching unofficially critical race theory. All you know is one.
No, that is my personal experience.
Okay, how many then? Give me a number. How many?
There are many parents.
How many? No. I don't want many. Give me a number. What's many? 10, 30, 50, 100?
Parents who have seen things in their schools.
How many?
Hundreds.
How many?
Just in my universe.
How many?
Countless stories.
How many? No, I didn't ask for countless or many. How many?
I don't have a number.
So you have a number. How many school children in Florida?
You're right.
No, Keisha, how many school children in Florida?
In the Duval County School District.
No, in the whole state.
I'm not sure. Millions.
Okay.
Sure.
There are nearly 3 million students in public schools in Florida. And you supported a statewide ban that's not even impacting you, and you can't give a number. But you said that you object to an assembly being people of color and whites, and you said that if you have a problem, they should meet with only the affected people. Do you not see the contradiction in your own statement?
No, I do not, and here is why.
Okay.
Because you have individual isolated incidents where there is no the part that you're missing, Mr. Martin, is that even though it's not written in curriculum, this is your same argument that racism is everywhere. It's not written into law, but it's still everywhere, according to you.
No, actually, you're wrong. Because when I look at Georgia voter suppression law, when I look at Texas, and I look at the fact that the Texas voter ID law, 5 federal judges deemed it discriminatory against minorities and ruled it unconstitutional, I would say that's writing it into law. So you're wrong.
You're stating that.
No, what I'm stating is that 5 federal judges ruled the Texas voter ID law was unconstitutional and discriminated against minorities. So what I'm arguing is that law that was written, yeah, that was discriminatory as it was written. So yes, you're correct.
If racism is being taught in schools, even if it is unofficially taught, what is wrong with saying, okay, you know what? This type of teaching it's not going to be taught at all.
I would say this here. I would say it would be nonsensical. I would say if there was one teacher who was at a school district who was teaching something that was racist, I would say deal with that teacher and not say, oh, we're going to say all teachers across the state. Here's the bottom, Keisha. You don't have the data. You can't even give a number, and you can't. And what I'm saying is it's nonsensical for conservatives in these states passing statewide bans on something that's not even being taught, and you don't even know how significant it is. So, and here's the whole piece. Critical race theory is not a part of the curriculum. It doesn't exist in Florida schools or Texas or Oklahoma or Arkansas. And for the people who say it is, you simply can't provide the data. So, I appreciate it. You give your final comment. Go ahead.
That said that, that racism, was not really a problem, and they didn't think that slavery should have been abolished either. So I'm guessing that's what it.
That's just totally nonsensical. It makes no sense at all. And the bottom line is this here: you can't even provide an actual number. You use words like many and a lot. Those are the words that people use when they don't have the numbers to back them up. So that's why I'm simply saying you might want to be specific. You might want to have folks bring it in, but you don't have it. You don't. And so what you chose to do is to say, oh, I want to kill a fly, I'm going to fire a bazooka. And again, your own example at Douglas contradicts what you did before the State Board of Education. And so good luck for Moms for Liberty. I hope to spend some time in Florida. And yeah, I'll certainly be talking about the issue, how race does impact us in our society. And we're going to call out on every level. And we're also going to call out those politicians who support these racist voter suppression policies that we see existing, especially there in Florida as well. So we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
What on? Everything and nothing at the same time.
You're looking great.
Thank you.
What is it about all these black folks in Essence that's just so different and special?
And they what?
What's so special about and unique with all the black folks, the black love here in Essence?
That is what? That is what? That is all black love. That's what's significant and different about it. It's pure.
And then, of course, you got all the sisters.
Sorry?
Then, of course, you got all the sisters as well.
Exactly. And brothers.
Oh, yeah. Things going well for you?
It's going real well for me. God's been real good to me. Still being good to me. I'm just doing what I got to do.
It's always good seeing you.
Well, thank you so much. I love this.
We got to mix it up a little bit.
I feel you, baby.
If you ain't regular, you can't have regular pockets. All right, folks, each and every single day here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we're going to feature that Essence Festival Coca-Cola throwback moment leading up to, of course, this year's 2021 virtual Essence Festival. Because of COVID, they're not having the big gathering in New Orleans, but they will be virtual. And so on June 26th and June 27th, two weekends, June 26th, June 27th, July 3rd, July 4th. Essence Festival will be virtual. You can simply go to their YouTube channel, the Facebook page, and go to essence.com to actually watch it. You're going to have the workshops in the daytimes beginning at 2 p.m. And then, of course, the concerts beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern every single night, going until 10 p.m. And so we look forward to sharing with you some of our throwback moments. That, of course, was Shaka Khan from the 2016 Essence Festival. So we've got some great stuff dipping into my archives to show you. And we're going to do that every single day right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we're going to be sharing photos on my social media. So go to Instagram, go to Facebook and Twitter, Snapchat. You'll be able to see those throwback moments as well. And so we're going to give you guys an email to share some of your Essence Festival throwback photos and video that we're going to be sharing with the audience. And we certainly look forward to doing that.
All right, welcome back to Velshi. Back with me, Roland Martin, host of Roland Martin Unfiltered, Dr. Brittany Cooper, Africana Studies professor at Rutgers University, author of the book Eloquent Rage. Dr. Cooper, I want to put up a chart of how many times my friends at Fox across the road have used the word critical race theory over the last year. That's the monthly mentions. They're up to about 600 in June. I guess people just don't understand. The critical means a critical examination of race in this country. People have taken this to mean a theory that's just critical of white people. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I'm a big First Amendment guy. But on this Juneteenth day, it is important to understand that there are probably some schools in this country in which a teacher can't teach about Juneteenth because it falls into the category of all the stuff that's been banned that they can't talk about anymore.
Absolutely. So, look, we're at the heights of white hysteria again, because what these folks have done is wage a battle on knowledge. They don't want us to be an informed citizenry, because it turns out that when people actually do know better, they sometimes feel a moral compunction to do better. These people could keep insulting their own base. They basically are saying we want to keep our base ignorant so that we can play on their most base level emotions about grievance and exclusion, and then use them to really wage this kind of informational based race war. But it's also so deeply intellectually disingenuous, because critical race theory is only taught at the highest levels of academia. It's typically not even taught in undergraduate education. It's typically only taught in graduate school, because it's something that emerges out of the study of the law. So what these folks are really saying is that they don't want their children or any black and brown children to have an accurate accounting of African American history, an accurate accounting of American history, right? That is the thing that they are. That is what they are resisting.
Yeah, your description of that, Roland, is Dr. Cooper's description of that is not what Ted Cruz said it is. He said it's little kids in school, white kids being taught to hate themselves.
Here's the whole deal. I'm not going to debate critical race theory, because they're idiots. Fox News, let's be real clear. Let's be real clear. This is a white nationalist strategy. This has nothing to do with education. This has nothing to do. This is about 2022. The Republican Party, Fox News, need angry white people at the polls in 2022 to take back the Senate and the House. That's it. Christopher Rufo, one of the leaders of this, he literally tweeted this. He said, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory." PC. Now their woke is now replaced PC. They are trying to drive white people to anger them, to drive them to the polls. That's all. It's an election strategy. What mainstream media has to do is is falling for banana in the tailpipe when conservative media does this. And so that's what they want. Debating critical race theory. What is it? Was being taught. I had a crazy black woman on from Florida who went before the State Board of Education, said, this one teacher said this to my child. And I said, so one teacher said something that you call critical race theory and it wasn't, and you want the State Board of Education to change the whole law in the state? I said, that's idiotic. And I said, what's the percentage of teachers teaching it? I don't know. I said, and that's precisely the point. This is about electoral politics. And progressives, you better wake up, because these angry white Trump supporters, they are trying to win because they're mad they lost in 2020.
So, Dr. Cooper, translates very clearly into the efforts to still suppress the votes of black people in this country that we continue to see, and they are expanding now. We just saw a protest in Michigan where people have filed all sorts of papers to have an audit there. I spoke to the Secretary of State of Colorado today. We're seeing it happening in Pennsylvania. Malcolm Kenyatta calls it artisanal voter suppression or something of that nature. We are seeing that follow up, not just in word, but in deed.
Absolutely. Just like in 1865, look, I live in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey was actually the last state to abolish slavery, and it happened after Juneteenth. So there is a full court press, not just in the Confederate states, but also in these, these supposedly liberal pockets, even here on the East Coast, even up north, to reinstantiate white supremacy at every level, to reinstantiate white power. I think that Roland is right that this is an electoral strategy, but I also think Republicans are doing what they've always done, which is that this is their next tactic in their culture war, right? They want to make this argument that folks are being assaulted, and that their kids are being assaulted in classrooms, and they are now targeting K through 12, but they did this initial push even at the university level. This is why they came after Nikole Hannah-Jones, right, for doing the 1619 Project. These folks want to tell a whitewashed version of history in which they stole native lands. It was fine for them to do so because God wanted them to have this land, and that then they were entitled to black people to work this land. And they want us all to be happy and to say we've moved on. But it's so interesting that they think that it's black people who are stuck in the past, when clearly they are the folks who are reliving their 19th century glory, and they lost a war, and yet they keep on trying to refight and relitigate a war that they lost resoundingly. Then they lost again in the 1960s on the heels of the civil rights movement. So history does not ultimately go to these losers, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to be vigilant in continuing to say, here's what the truth is. We will fight you every step of the way. And Juneteenth reminds us that our people didn't just get freedom because white people gave it to us, but that we fought and that we continue to control our history, our narrative, our story. That is what makes white people so mad, that black people have agents for our story, and we're going to continue to do that.
Roland, you got 10 seconds.
They control 60 plus of the 99 state legislatures. They control the Supreme Court 6-3. They control 30 governor's mansions. Understand, this is about power. And if you don't think it's about power, then you have no clue about American history. White backlash has always followed black success in America. Read a book, and you'll understand what's happening today because it happened before.
Thank you to the both of you. I didn't get a ton of sleep last night. I was a little sleepy. I am ready to run a marathon after talking to the two of you about this. Thank you to my two friends, Roland Martin, the host of Roland Martin Unfiltered, and Dr. Brittany Cooper, professor of Africana Studies at Women's and Gender Studies at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And
you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. And I do want to go, though, to Pastor Dwight McKissick, the pastor out of Arlington, Texas, and he has been battling the issue of race within the Southern Baptist Convention. And actually, Pastor McKissick, these things are tied. What's happening in the United States Senate right now, and these white conservative evangelicals who are the backbone of the Republican Party, they are the ones who are also supporting these voter suppression laws across the country. The battle that you have been engaged in, it is supposed to be a theological one, but what you're really dealing with the issue of race and politics. So what you're seeing in the U.S. Senate, you actually are dealing with in the Southern Baptist Convention.
Actually, the issue is power, who's going to control the political landscape? Will it be right-wing political conservatism that's very content with a number of African Americans not voting, as we saw the effort across the country to restrict voting? Paula White prayed for African angels to be loose and look like they were in Philadelphia and Atlanta and Detroit. All over, black people came out and voted, and the victory was won. But the critical race theory to suppress what can be taught about race and history in America is being pushed by Republicans. Voter suppression is being pushed by the Republicans, and unfortunately, we find that mindset, although we discovered it may not be the majority mindset, but it is a very substantial, significant mindset, exists in the Southern Baptist Convention. So it's unfortunate, Roland, that the South is rising again. And just like the Southern Baptist Convention gave the theological license for racism and segregation in America, in many ways, they are the backbone and the support of the Republican Party in this whole notion of voter suppression and trying to restrict what can be taught about history in our public school systems.
But you even have the new president of SBC who literally had to disavow QAnon because it is running rampant in Southern Baptist churches. The reality is this here. These forces, they are the group that's supportive of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a grip on the Republican Party. He has a grip on these white Southern Baptists. And the reality is the white conservative evangelicals, they are the most ardent supporters. They are the base of Trump and the Republican Party. And what we are seeing, not just with this made-up crap when it comes to critical race theory, but we're seeing this all across the board. And I have been saying for the longest, this is about power. This is about control and not wanting, frankly, those of us who are black to now have an opinion and a perspective to be able to impact the church and impact public policy.
Yeah, the Candace Owens and Vody Balkins, those persons who march in lockstep with that ideology. And I'm an independent voter. I'm neither Republican nor Democrat at the end of the day. I vote for the best man or woman I think who suits the needs of the hour. But those who are will dot every I and cross every T with current political Republican thinking, they don't mind those kinds of blacks being involved. The black gentleman is running for governor down in Georgia, Vernon, whatever his name is. But if you happen to be an independent thinker, as you are, Roland, one of the best out there, can articulate your viewpoints, give a rationale and basis for it, Southern Baptists don't like blacks that are independent thinkers and voters, nor do the Republican Party. However, I want us to take note of the fact that the Al Mohler, who was a ardent Trump supporter, lost the election along with Mike Stone, the two men who were most conservative and openly supporting Trump, lost the election. And Ed Litton, who we don't know for sure how he voted, but he did not come out in favor. He did not come out against CRT. Matter of fact, he signed a document with Fred Luter, myself, and others, more in line with justice and equality and fairness. And the person who won only by 600 votes, he does appear publicly to be in line with the majority of the Republican mindset in SBC. That's interesting, Roland, because so many blacks, as you know, Ralph West, Charlie Date, so many pulled out, and others of us threatened to pull out if they go on this strong anti-CRT rant and just in-your-face republicanism, like Al Mohler says. If you take a moral Christian position, you'll vote Republican. That's an insult to the millions of black Christians who vote Democrat because they promote justice and equality, fairness, health issues, and affordable health care, and other reasons why sometimes black people vote Democratic. I don't think God is riding the back of a donkey or of an elephant. God is God, but people have a right to, under God, make their voting decisions, and I don't think we ought to moralize or spiritualize how one votes as being in favor, is touch with God, or out of favor and in touch with God. But it's interesting. The Southern Baptist Convention, in some ways, may possibly have taken a turn by voting a candidate that nobody thought would win, that Fred Luter supported. I supported because he was the one who had a more biblical and balanced view when it comes to some of these hot-button issues.
Well, it is certainly interesting times, and I have been warning people this for a long time. What you're seeing is you're white fear run amok. You're seeing it boils down to power, and you know, I got a kick out of Meghan McCain yesterday on The View, calling into question the spirituality of President Joe Biden because he is pro-choice and he's a Catholic, and the U.S. Conference of Bishops, Catholic bishops, passed a resolution. They want to deny communion to any Catholic who supports abortion. And my response to her was simply, hey, but the Catholic Church is also a strong believer against the death penalty. And are they going to deny communion to those who support the death penalty? It's amazing when folks love to pick and choose what biblical principles they want to support, but then they also want to talk about separation of church and state when it suits their needs.
You make a very good point. If we go to denying people communion based on theological or political positions that they hold, which one of us won't get denied communion? As you know, black people are not monolithic ourselves. A wide variety of opinions on a lot of different issues. And I think when it comes to the Lord's Supper in God's house, if you believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the substitutionary atonement of Jesus Christ, that ought to be the sole basis for the Lord's Supper, not how one check a box when it comes to politics. So I think the Catholic Church is out of lockstep on that issue. And I think it would be just really unfair if we go to asking people to check political boxes to determine whether or not we'll serve them the Lord's Supper.
Well, I'll tell you this here. I also said this to Meghan McCain. I said, the Bible talks a whole lot about the poor, and there's a whole bunch of folks, especially on the right, on the Republican side, whose policies are not in line with the poor. I said, so if y'all want to have that conversation, let's have it.
You're exactly right. A safety net was provided in Scripture. God said, keep a corner of your field for the strangers, the aliens, the foreigners, the what sometimes are called the immigrants or illegal immigrants. He said, make sure you plant enough food to take care of them. Remember the poor, is we find that in Galatians 2:10, as Paul said, as a way of demonstrating your faith. God has a heart for justice, equality, and the poor. He has showed the old man what is good, to do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with our God. And sometimes we find that lacking in the Republican Party. I think one reason George Bush, whether you like him or not, succeeded, he touted compassionate conservatism. And to some degree, I think he modeled and demonstrated compassionate conservatism. We're not used to seeing that among Republicans, and certainly not since Ronald Reagan. My mama named me Dwight after Dwight David Eisenhower. So at some point, blacks have not always had animus toward the Republican Party, but we have seen some ruthless things here under the Trump administration when it comes to race, and we are continuing to see a bent toward taking things back. Make America great again. Many of us feared that might mean make white America great again, or take it back to a time where blacks were not empowered and didn't have some opportunities and hope for a brighter day as we have today. And I think, Roland, I appreciate what you're doing and so many others to make sure that this voter suppression will not succeed, and that compassion and mercy and justice for the poor is always a part of our political landscape.
All right, Pastor Dwight McKissick, Cornerstone Baptist Church, Arlington, Texas. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. God bless you. Good being with you today.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into and you was doing it just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival out, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares is something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. As soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, the last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we going to have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full-page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. I'll bring in Nikole Hannah-Jones, of course, the creator of the 1619 Project, in right here, because all of this dovetails is perfectly what she's been dealing with in response. Of course, all these people being so upset. I mean, these white folks are really bothering themselves by the 1619 Project, because I keep telling y'all, white folks in this country are so fragile. They can't handle history, but they can only believe his story, okay? They can't handle anything else. That's why you have now Senator Mitch McConnell trying to attack her and telling the Department of Education, don't you dare include the 1619 Project in any federal grant programs in this country. Nikole, we've been talking about, of course, the comments made by Senator Tim Scott. And then even right there, when you heard him on Face the Nation trying to say, well, the reason we had the Pickford decision was because money was being taken away from black farmers to white farmers, and now we're trying to reverse that? No, Tim. We're trying to still deal with the inequities from the Pickford decision, because even that wasn't enough. And you would think a black man from South Carolina could understand that. But no, instead, he's simply tap dancing on the dance card of the Republican Party.
Well, I think that Representative or Senator Scott does, I think he does get it. He certainly understands, coming from his roots, that Pickford was about redress for discrimination. But this is something that it's a tool we've seen the Republican Party use really since the end of the civil rights movement. When you could no longer legally discriminate against Black Americans, the tactic then became to claim that redress for discrimination is equivalent to discrimination. That if you actually are trying to undo the harms of discrimination, that is just as bad as discrimination. And you've seen the Supreme Court make similar rulings, for instance, in Parents Involved, where it said, programs to try to help desegregate schools were just as bad as programs that segregated schools. So I don't believe that he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's sticking within the talking points of the Republican Party. And it sounds, I was just going to say that the reason it's effective is, of course, it framed that way does sound unfair. Well, why should white farmers not be able to get something that black farmers get? But the truth is, we know if you steal something from me, you having to pay me back is not unfair to my neighbors who aren't getting any money, right? That's not how it works. But it sounds like it sounds good, and that's why they say it
But this was the precise game played when you had the Republicans like Ward Connolly, who led their anti-affirmative action memorandums. So they would draft language where you would go, well, of course not. I wouldn't want somebody to be discriminated against because of their race. So therefore, I'm going to support this without realizing. In fact, I'm from Houston, and the late Mayor Bob Lanier, what he did was he made them change the language on the ballot to reflect what it would actually lead to. And they were mad as hell. That's why it got defeated in Houston, because he said, no. That language not going to fly, because we're going to put the actual intent down. And so you're right. Senator Tim Scott knows exactly what he's doing. And so he wants to sit here and provide the cover because he's running for re-election. And so he wants, he wants to get re-elected. He needs to play up to these white Republicans in South Carolina in order for him to win the primary, because he knows if he gets out of the primary, he's going to win in the general. And so he needs to be called out. But this is also why, and again, John Dickerson, fine, you're a nice journalist, but you're grossly unprepared for that question, because, as Michael said, the comeback should have easily been, so if you have to level the playing field, that means it's uneven. Senator, how did it get uneven? Now you got to force him to say, so why are you having to provide funding to HBCUs? What exactly happened where they are grossly underfunded? Senator, please tell me what's the endowment of the largest HBCU in the country, and does it even come close to the top 100 largely white institutions in America? He can't answer that question. Now all of a sudden he's stuck.
Yeah, I mean, this is why you see so much opposition to the 1619 Project. It's because when we talk about issues of racial inequality, whether it be economic inequality, whether it be inequality in education, inequality in the criminal justice system, inequality in the treatment of Black farmers, if we can just pretend that today is today and we have no past, nothing created this, there's no long history and legacy of legalized discrimination, then we can use that rhetoric of equality without actually having to do anything to address the inequality. So if you actually have to grapple with the past and all of the institutions that really conspired to keep Black people in the lower caste, then you are charged with having to do something to rectify the current inequality. So we have to kind of exist in this space where the only thing that matters about our past are the good things, and all of the bad things about our past are irrelevant to the society we live in today.
That's why I played that. That's why I've been laughing, because all of these folks on Fox News and conservative media, they've been going on and on and on. Oh, critical race theory and there's no systemic racism in America, and they're going on and on and on. And you're sitting there going, so y'all just want to act like all these facts just don't exist? So it just so happened that black people proliferate the criminal justice system. That thing just happened. That's just on y'all. Y'all were just born criminal, and that's why. Oh, the health disparities. Oh, no. Please, racism in medicine had nothing to do with that. In fact, that's gonna be our next conversation. How this white doctor treated a brother who went to the hospital. She's like, hey, yeah, you want some narcotics, huh? I mean, Nikole, the reason black people initially were not addicted to opioids is because white doctors would not prescribe opioids because they said, yeah, they just here trying to get a high. And guess what? They ended up hooking white folks on opioids.
Yes. Absolutely. It's the one time where being discriminated against has actually saved our lives for a brief period of time. So of course that's not the case anymore, and black people are now also being ravaged by the opioid crisis. But I think what this just speaks to in general, if you were to ask, I don't even know how Republicans discovered all of a sudden critical race theory, because it's been around for at least 2 decades. But if you were to ask them to list a primary text of critical race theory that they've read, if you were to ask them to actually give examples of how critical race theory operates in our society, they couldn't give those examples. They haven't read the text. They don't actually know what it is. But it's become this, I don't even like to say part of the culture wars. It's become this part of this effort to really stoke white resentment.
Oh, no, that's
that
all
Republicans
it is.
are leaning into.
Oh, no, let's be
and
real.
we shouldn't call it culture wars.
No, it's not a culture war.
That's not actually what it is.
No, it's not a culture war. This is all. Here's the deal, and this is real simple, and this is why Mitch McConnell is attacking you, the 1619 project with the Department of Education. This is just the facts. And this is why I need all the black people who are bitching and moaning about what Vice President Harris had to say to understand what's going on here. This is very simple. Stock market, jobs report, major bills being passed, highly popular with American people, President Joe Biden's approval ratings high. What they need, they desperately need white conservative evangelicals and non-college educated white people to be so enraged with wokeness, cancel culture, critical race theory, 1619 project, black farmers getting $5 billion, and then they trot out Senator Tim Scott. What they need is they have got white people. They're coming after our way of life. That's why I'm dropping a book next year called White Fear. That's all this is about. And so we got to understand not to get caught in their game.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And I'll be honest, early on when the project came out, I was getting caught in that game. And then I came to realize that we cannot allow ourselves to be baited into having arguments that don't serve the work that we're trying to do, that this is strategic. The very same people who were outraged for, 2 weeks over the Dr. Seuss estate saying that it was no longer going to print books that were racist, are the same people who are applauding efforts by Republican lawmakers all across America to prohibit the teaching of the 1619 Project, to make it illegal to teach ideas that they don't like. So we have to understand really what the actual strategy is here so that we can push back against the correct strategy. Having arguments about cancel culture, about culture wars are really useless. We have to stop using euphemisms and call this out for what it is.
Oh, absolutely. So that's why anytime I see any of these people, and in fact, you got to understand, literally right down the hall from me is Bob Woodson, who came out with that, whatever that 1776 thing or whatever the hell that thing was. And I was like, Bob, that crap ain't gonna fly. And so you can sit here and have these white folks, white conservatives, prop you up, and talk about we need to have personal responsibility in our neighborhoods. And I was like, when I had him on the show, well, Bob, what happened when we were personally responsible, yet we still broke? Yet we still have no investment in our neighborhood. We still have crappy schools. So what do we then have? See, they don't want that conversation, which is why the response has to be, no, let's talk about exactly what's happening. So we're not going to get caught in the racist, not racist conversation. And that's the trap they want to set for us. And my deal is you got to be smart enough to not fall for it. That's why I think as people, and again, I'm not, y'all, people know I went after Obama on a lot of stuff. I'm not covering up for Vice President Harris. She could not answer the question the way a bunch of us probably would answer the question because she knows she's the one who might be running for president one day. And guess what? White folks vote.
Well, and she's the second highest ranking official over United States of America. So the expectation that she is going to say that she is helping to run a racist country it's not a realistic expectation. We understand that politicians have their role, and those of us who are not politicians have our role, and we as journalists have a role to tell the truth. That's not necessarily the same role that politicians have all the time. They have to speak to their constituents. I think that we have to really think about where all of these conversations are going, right? When you look at the 1776 Commission, when you look at the 1776 Project, it's trying to get us to debate systemic racism.
Right.
Systemic racism is not up for debate.
Right.
The proof
We ain't
is
debating
there,
that.
right? The data, the sociological research, like we know that it exists. So to me, I'm not going to debate the existence of something that we already have proof of. And that's what they want us to do. That's why, as you said earlier, focusing on whether this person is racist or not, I'm completely disinterested in whether individuals are racist or not. I am interested in whether they're passing policy that has a racist impact or a racial impact. And so we can't allow other people to define the parameters of a conversation, particularly when it comes to things like systemic racism, which have already been proven.
It's simple as that. Nikole Hannah-Jones, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Nikole Hannah-Jones is rejecting the University of North Carolina's controversial tenure offer in exchange for another opportunity. Of course, she is a journalist with the New York Times, created the 1619 Project, which won the Pulitzer Prize. She's actually going to become a member of Howard University's where they're going to create a program there, Center for Journalism and Democracy, along with her as well as Ta-Nehisi Coates. Now, she went on CBS this morning to make the decision. But she also is going to serve as the school's first night chair in race and journalism. When she, of course, folks have been all across social media been talking about, especially black journalists, and how big of a decision this is. Last week, of course, the University of North Carolina Board of Trustees voted 9-4 to grant her tenure after initially the decision was made not to bring that to the board to actually approve. Now, she issued a statement with regards to this decision. She published this, and I'm going to pull it up in a second. Folks, if y'all have the statement, go ahead and pull it up, please, so I can read from it. Internet's moving a little slow, and so here it is. Just give me 1 second, folks. Give me 1 second. This is a PDF statement And though she said, quote, "I have loved the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill since I was a child, watching Tar Heels basketball on television. 2 decades ago, in 2001, I learned that not only had I been accepted into the master's program at the journalism school at UNC, but I had received a full tuition Park Fellowship. I cried from joy. I could not believe how lucky I was to get the chance to learn journalism at a place I had so long revered. For the next 2 years, I practically lived in Carroll Hall, spending more time there than anywhere else, even my apartment. I passed hours and hours in that building, studying, working at the Park Library, soaking in the skills of journalism, as well as its ethics and mandates from the many generous instructors sitting in the offices of professors such as Chuck Stone and Harry Amana, who enthralled me with their stories and guided my steps. I met one of my best friends in the master's program, and she became my daughter's godmother. And so it went on and on and on. She talked about getting awards, what she created, the kind of things that she did. Then she also said this here. She talked about what went through and when she was granted tenure and the problems that took place and all of the impact. And one of the things that she said in this statement, even at noting the people who have lobbied for her, and again, it's a very long statement, and she said, "These last few weeks have been very dark. To be treated so shabbily by my alma mater, by a university that has given me so much and which I only sought to give back to, has been deeply painful." Then she laid out some other stuff in here, but then she said, "I cannot imagine working at and advancing a school named for a man who lobbied against me, who used his wealth to influence the hires and ideology of the journalism school, who ignored my 20 years of journalism experience, all of my credentials, all of my work, because he believed that a project that centered Black Americans equaled the denigration of white Americans. Nor can I work at an institution whose leadership permitted this conduct and has done nothing to disavow it. How could I believe I'd be able to exert academic freedom with the school's largest donor so willing to disparage me publicly and attempt to pull the strings behind the scenes? Why would I want to teach at a university whose top leadership chose to remain silent, to refuse transparency, to fail to publicly advocate that I be treated like every other night chair before me? Or for a university overseen by a board that would so callously put politics over what is best for the university that we all love? These times demand courage, and those who have held the most power in this situation have exhibited the least of it." And the statement goes on and on and on here. The thing here, Ben, again, if you go read the statement, it's a very, very long statement that she actually released here. And people have been talking about this. And so Howard University stepped in. I would love, we're going to try to get President Wayne Frederick on. I would love to hear how this all came about, how it was, how they created this particular center. But the thing that we also are looking at is she and Ta-Nehisi, she made the decision to spurn the University of North Carolina to go to Howard University. I've heard people today say Howard should have been the first choice as opposed to UNC. I've heard others say that there were a lot of people who protested about her getting tenure. Some people turned down jobs, some resigned. And some people have said that she should have gone to UNC and fought to change the system because others stood up for her to actually get tenure. Your assessment of this whole debacle that has unfolded.
Sister Nikole Hannah-Jones, she's absolutely doing what what is in the best interest for her, and I applaud it. I think we are better for it. I am excited to see that team go over to Howard University, and it really is a bold statement to let a lot of these institutions know that we're doing you a favor by lending you our Blackness. You know, Sister Jones was doing you a favor by lending that Black magic, that Black woman magic that she does in journalism, the professionalism and the countless hours that she put in to develop and hone her craft. And if you're going to dismiss her, the totality of her work because of your insecurity around around racism, then it's your loss. And I think that's what she stated today. And I think as a nation, as a Black people in general, us collectively, I think we should make that statement on a regular basis, because there are plenty of institutions that not only cherish our work, but will promote it without any inhibition or fear of white supremacy.
Teresa, this was the tweet that Howard University sent out today with this announcement. Howard University announces Nikole Hannah-Jones and Ta-Nehisi Coates will join the Howard University faculty to help educate the next generation of Black journalists. This was, of course, her speaking this morning, because she gave the television exclusive of this to CBS and Gayle King. Listen.
What did you do? We just heard the vote was 9-4, offering you the tenure. What have you decided?
Well, I've decided to decline the offer of tenure. I will not be teaching on the faculty of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It's a very difficult decision, not a decision I wanted to make. And instead, I'm going to be the inaugural night chair in race and journalism at Howard University.
So many things to unpack there. First, let's start with you declining the offer. The vote was 9-4, clearly in your favor. There are some people that could say, you said you wouldn't take the job without being offered tenure. They offered you the tenure, and you're still saying, thanks, but no.
Absolutely.
Because?
Well, because look what it took to get tenure. So this was a position that since the 1980s came with tenure. The night chairs are designed for professional journalists who have been working in the field to come into academia. And every other chair before me, who also happened to be white, received that position with tenure.
It had never been denied. No one had ever been denied tenure before.
Exactly. And I went through the tenure process, and I received the unanimous approval of the faculty to be granted tenure. And so to be denied it and to only have that vote occur on the last possible day, at the last possible moment, after threat of legal action, after weeks of protest, after it became a national scandal, it's just not something that I want anymore.
So that was what she had to say to CBS this morning. Teresa.
Yeah, I think Nikole, like many, did what was in the best interest of her. I mean, we don't know the back end of the amount of stress, the amount of calls, the amount of anxiety, and honestly, even if you read her pieces, it's I just want to teach and educate. And so, I'm kind of with her. But again, if I'm thinking about the advocacy side, I'm pushing Nikole to stay there and at UNC and create additional change for a system that obviously needs an uplift. But I am also excited that she's over there at Howard University, and I do believe Howard is going to get exactly what they're looking for. So they wanted someone that is high energy, high standards in journalism, ethical, professional. That's what they're going to get with Nikole and Tahisi. So congrats to them.
Mustafa.
What did Dr. King say? In the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. For the University of North Carolina to remain silent for so long says a lot, and it also prepares you for if you do decide to stay, that you may not have all the support once the cameras and the media attention goes away. So, I mean, everybody knows I've went into some tough situations and organizations that folks said, might not be the most receptive, but I totally get where she is. And I'll just say also, I appreciated the way that she, played this out today, like a top round draft pick. Making sure that folks understood that she understood her value and that she was going to leverage it to make sure that she got the best possible set of circumstances as she moves forward and helping to prepare the next generation. So congratulations to her.
Something also, what you're seeing happen here, and we're seeing this actually in sports, where we saw, of course, Deion Sanders make a decision to become the head football coach at Jackson State. Of course, Eddie George was announced as the new head coach at Tennessee State. This happened over the weekend. Former NBA star Reggie Theus announced as the new head basketball coach and men's athletic director at Bethune-Cookman. And so, are you okay, Ben?
Yeah, no, that's my school, man.
I saw you.
I wasn't on screen.
You weren't. So were you? I take it this is news to you. You weren't aware of this?
I wasn't aware, but hell, Wildcats, Bethune-Cookman University. That's my school, man.
So what we're seeing, is one of the things that we're seeing HBCUs go after big names like this. One of the reasons, Ben, is because in the wake of George Floyd's death, there's been a significant influx of cash going to HBCUs. Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, has given millions of dollars, has greatly increased the funds, the endowments of a number of HBCUs, and so we're actually seeing this, and I dare say, and for folk, don't, some people may take it the wrong way, but this is also what happens when you stop chasing white validation. when you recognize that people talking about, oh, go to a place where you value. I'll be honest with you. I've always understood that I was valued in black media more than I was in white media. And so hopefully people will not, let me be real clear, hopefully people will not look at black institutions as my fallback, but as their first choice, not their last choice.
Absolutely, Roland. I love everything about this new season where we no longer care about white validation.
No, hold up. Some, let's not get carried away. A whole bunch of us still do.
Yeah. Well, let's speak it into existence that all of us could be delivered from the need for white validation. Because I experienced the same thing, and that's why I got so excited. I'm pretty sure I wasn't on camera, but when I heard that headline, Bethune-Cookman did so well by me, as opposed to the
you were not on camera. Hearing was a little slow switching, but y'all, let me just give y'all a reenactment. This was Ben. Yeah, That was the reenactment of when Ben heard that news. So Henry, next time, switch faster so we can show Ben acting a fool on camera.
Listen, y'all should see me behind the screens, especially with some of these stories Roland be covering. But listen, I'm a product of Mary McLeod Bethune's $1.50. I'm a product of her last will and testament. And so to see this trend happening across the country, Howard University, they won out big. I mean, can you imagine being able to learn underneath the tutelage of Ta-Nehisi Coates and Nikole Hannah-Jones, Jackson State, with prime time? I mean, it is going to be a wonderful renaissance in believing in only validation we need is from other black folks, and I love it.
Look again, and I'm going to say this again. There is, look, I get, I get folks who sit here and they, that they want to work for various institutions and they want, and I get it. And I know there's somebody who's probably saying, oh, Roland, that's easy to say you at CNN, but they got to remember, I was with black media before I was with CNN, and I never left black media. And I really want people to understand that we also have to be thinking about, Teresa, how we actually build something, the opportunities that we actually get. And so I would hope more people would have an appreciation of black-owned, black-led, black-run institutions.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember years ago, as I was making a decision, going to an HBCU school, starting out, or going to a traditional college. I started out at a HBCU school, and then, I transferred to a traditional, but the important part was the decision was going to an HBCU school because I was looking for culture. I was looking for, more background on Black excellence. I wanted to know more. So I think there's a whole narrative that you can get at an HBCU school where you don't really have to have so many racial inequity conversations that you would at a traditional school that's just trying to figure out our blackness. At a HBCU school, students say, there's been studies that say they feel comfortable, they feel like they're at home, they feel more in position to do greater things. And so I want people to know that HBCU schools have excellent leadership. Excellent leadership is always pulled into corporations. So different individuals that you may not hear on your alumni chapter is also working in high-end positions, in the corporate or political space or even entrepreneurial space. So I think, supporting every HBCU school and making it your first choice is the right choice.
Well, I tell you this here, and so Mustafa, I make it clear, go where you can go. People always ask me, man, you didn't go to HBCU. I'm always seeing you wear your Texas A&M gear. I'm like, you damn right. My brother went there, I went there, my sister went there. Hell, my parents didn't have the money for all three of us to go to school, so we went where the money was. And so if a HBCU had offered me a scholarship, TSU was right across the street, they didn't even recruit me, and I was the best student in my high school in terms of school communications. But what I tell people, it don't matter if you didn't go to a HBCU, you can still support black institutions, which is one of the reasons why I'll be a scholar in residence at Fisk University this fall.
Well, congratulations on that. I mean, you raise one of the most important points is that for the first time in a very, very long time, we're actually seeing an influx in dollars towards some of our HBCUs. I can give a list of others who haven't yet benefited from the sets of dollars that are out there, and to some of our black organizations. So we have to continue to push folks to make sure that the right investments are happening, and then we have to also make sure that we are supporting the organizations that we see value in. So you actually are making a decision when you do not support black organizations. You are saying that you don't see that much value in them. So we have the opportunity to actually change that. And I'll say that's another reason to make sure that you are supporting the Bring the Funk fan club, to make sure that this particular show continues to have the dollars that it needs, so that even when we're at home, we can have the nice backgrounds like you got in the studio right now, Roland.
You got that right, and so that's what we're trying to do. Folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into and you was doing this just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival out, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. As soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I have. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. Okay. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full-page ad out in the USA Today.
So don't forget, if you want to watch the 2021 Essence Festival of Culture Live Loud virtual experience, go to essencestudios.com or essence.com.